There's no denying that talking about race can often become heated, divisive, and downright uncomfortable. The Living Undivided show, hosted by Chuck Mingo, exists to be a place where conversations on race are approached with grace and empathy. Chuck is the founder and CEO of Courageous Love, a racial healing, solidarity, and justice movement launched in 2015. Through the movement, thousands of participants have been catalyzed into action. Each week on the show, Chuck introduces the audience to a guest who is a change agent, reaching across racial lines and working toward racial healing. These stories are examples of the grace, boldness, and courageous love necessary to bridge the divide in our country. This is Living Undivided.
Well, welcome to another episode of Living Undivided, where in every conversation, I just want to talk to people who are living undivided, people who are leaning into the racial divide, the tension in our country, but doing it with intentionality to bridge that divide and make a difference. And we're in Chicago. We're with the Kendall family today, who has an amazing story. So Connor, Colleen, Cece, and Alice are with us. And hey, it's just good to be with you all. So thanks for hosting us. I mean, why don't we just start by just giving some context for where we are in Chicago?
Great, yeah, we're in Wicker Park. Bucktown's across the street, but right here we're in Wicker Park at the corner of Damon, Milwaukee, and North Avenue.
Yeah. And this is home.
This is home
for your family.
Yeah, we live in the middle of Wicker Park on Wicker Park Avenue.
And so last year, 2020, I would say was a moment of reckoning. Honestly, a moment of reckoning, I think, for our entire country, and particularly around race. And talk about what the environment was like in Chicago as kind of George Floyd happened and all the other things that happened this summer. Just take us back there if you can.
I think that as much as it was a time of a lot of sadness, it was also a time that I felt the city really came together. A lot of communities came together, small communities doing many walks and fundraisers, and especially still you can see coming down Milwaukee, and you can, if you drive down Chicago Avenue and whatnot, a lot of art came out of that too, supporting Black Lives Matter, and I think that, like you said, it was a time of reckoning, but it was also a time of awareness. And I think that it allowed a lot of people to express themselves in a way that they may have not been able to do so, but also teach. It was the moment, of teaching, I think, also for, little ones too, as much as adults.
So I want to hear about the conversations at your dinner table as you're living this out. And just by the way, if you're listening to this on podcast, we're in a photo studio, hardwood floors, we got kids. This is real people having real life conversations, right? Connor's sweating it out, but it's just we're all good. We're all good. And I'm really thankful for your time. So take us back there though. I mean, I can only imagine what those conversations would have been like. What were you talking about at the dinner table, your process?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it's a lot like this. A lot of distraction. Your spouse is your best friend, ideally, right? I think a lot of it's working through things and bouncing those things off another person. I think that I know the frustration that you were feeling, and I know the how particularly angry I felt, and we spent a lot of time just kind of.
Let me just pause you too. Say more about that. What were you feeling?
I was so sad. I was, raising two little girls. Why is this happening now? We should be very progressive, and we should be so accepting, and we're raising our kids to be that way. Why is this occurring? And I just remember, when the news came out, just standing in shock and just crying about it, and just not understanding why this is happening in our society today, and trying to raise better people and trying to be role models, for our children now, and just
taking it even a step further. Where we come from and the family that we're raising here in Chicago, where we have to walk through explaining it to them, obviously, but more so, we have to try to wrap our heads around what that must feel like for the other members of our community. That's something that is very difficult to address with them, because you're trying to explain something that could happen, but but it's vastly less likely to happen to you.
Right.
And we are angry about what's happening around us and what we've seen, and that's us trying to wrap our heads around that being a tiny fraction of what it must be like to be a Black American. We are trying to relate our big anger and what that must feel like for somebody who is witnessing that or being a part of that every single day. But to understand our place in the community and what other members of the community must feel like at this moment was a lot of how we in the early stages kind of walked through it.
Right.
We said, this is something that that is going to have people acting. I'm sorry. I mean, it's going to cause this tidal wave of emotions and actions, and we have to understand who we are in that place, and then understand our place in the community that in helping other people get through this as well.
Right. And the why we were doing things too, right? So we would go to marches and we would take the girls with us.
Right.
And we would, being part of the mural that was being painted and like why gathered so many people around our house and why people were celebrating this moment of this, going up in our city and explaining to our 4-year-old who's quite the sponge, about equality, about that things are going to be difficult for other people, but we have to have that empathy and we have to be teachers and we have to be role models and leaders. And, she won't understand it fully, right now, but at least we can teach, we can start from the bottom and teach equality and that, everyone is a human being, even though it shouldn't be dictated by the color of their skin. We all are different culturally, and it's something to celebrate. It's not something to be angry about or, see the world in a smaller light. It's about everybody, and just we're trying to teach them. We're trying to be the role models that then they can be.
Right. And the thing about parenting is like you're teaching in real time. You're teaching as you're learning. I mean, like you don't get to like play it out first and then come back. That's just not the way parenting works. Well, you mentioned the mural, and I want to get into that. And you said something that I think would be helpful just to frame that mural.
Yeah.
So we're going to see that mural. Yeah. And the mural is based on the 1968 march in Memphis, Tennessee, where it was the garbage workers that were, they were sanitation workers that were wanting to have rights that they didn't have in the workplace. There were 2 that had been killed, and all of these things, and the iconic "I am a man" sign. And so talk about that. Where did the genesis for that idea come from, and how did you all get involved in it? Because I'm sure you have artistic abilities, but you weren't the artist of this, right?
Yeah, so and learning this just through the process, the actual photo was taken at the memorial service for Martin Luther King, because he, being assassinated in Memphis, he was there to support the strike. Yeah. So the picture itself, and the reason that you see, I actually don't know the individual's name, but you see him in a suit. Yes. And he's holding, because he's at a memorial service, he's holding the sign from the strike that he's been a part of, which is a beautiful, again, dichotomy of and learning piece, because there's so much happening in that picture. He's
claiming his humanity, right?
Right. Oh gosh.
That's artistically though, bringing it to us. Yes. We can't take any credit for it.
No,
not at all. It was an absolute, not time and place, but it was a situation where the artist had been in conversations with us directly after George Floyd, and he said to us, "I want to do something," and I said, "Absolutely. What is that something?" And he said, I think the exact quote was...
He said, TBD, it's going to be big, right? It's going to be big,
And this is someone you were in friendship with?
Oh, yeah.
So talk about him a little bit.
Yeah.
Context for him.
So there are multiple
We wanted him to be with us today.
I know,
So talk to us about him.
So one of the artists, there's 3 total artists. Darius Dennis is who approached me, and you're talking in this text message conversation, but with a friend that I've known since I was 14 years old. Wow. Very, very gifted artist, and started working in murals kind of later in his artistic life. But basically reached out and said, "Hey, I need a very, very high impact, high trafficked area."
Like, we got one.
And I think you have one. And we said, "Sure, what do you want to do?" Because we've explored everything from advertising there to artists there.
Because this is a building that you own.
Well, we're the majority owner, but there is an association.
Okay.
So that's another hurdle that we would have to walk through, is getting everyone to approve.
Right.
So I basically told the other people in the building and said, listen, hey, we want to do something. And they said, what is it? And the exact quote I think from Darius was, it's going to be big.
Yes.
And trust me.
Yes, trust me.
Sure. Okay.
So you just shared that with the other owners. We're just going to be big, trust me.
Yeah, and of course, you have to show them eventually.
Yes.
So a few days later, he just sends me the picture, the actual photograph of what it's going to be. And literally immediately brings up all of those emotions we just talked about.
Yeah.
I mean, it's immediate. Like it is. It's something that I didn't know enough about until he brought this to us. I did not know enough about the Memphis sanitation strike. I did not know enough about Martin Luther King's memorial. Yeah. And just seeing that at that moment, you're just like, yep.
Yes.
The only way I can wrap my head around or look at it is to say, absolutely. Yeah. Couldn't have possibly thought of
there was something true. There was something true.
So impactful.
Right.
And it's very blunt, right? It is. The message hits you the minute you see it on the street, the minute you see it on a tiny little picture on your phone. Copy, forwarded it to everybody, and I said, "This is what's going on." Needless to say, there wasn't any pushback.
No, everyone was like, absolutely, yes, put it on. I can't believe that we're going to be able to like feature this and like for it to be that impact in our community and like, so.
From there, it was excitement.
Yeah.
Like, as soon as it's like thumbs up and it's going to happen, because he's booking flights and he's getting his equipment ready to bring this. But again, when you talk about the artistic piece, we trusted him so completely as a friend and as somebody who we've had hours and hours of conversations with. We trust his focus completely, and I knew how he was feeling in those days and those weeks, and to have him choose this as his first of now many, we feel so lucky. Like I'm proud, I guess.
Yeah, proud.
That because again, we're sitting here, we're having this conversation with you.
We're having a conversation with so many people that are walking by on a daily basis. I feel like it's just like a continuation of the.
Talk about that. What's been the impact? So this
has been super cool.
Just share the ripples. What are the stories? What's come out of this?
Well, COVID, during COVID, there was not a whole lot going on, but you'll see from our building, we have like a little patio that we would sit on all the time. The girls would sit and watch them paint. They would turned into their buddies and their friends every day. But then when everything was done, there was a QR code on the building, and people would come up and they would right away take, the image of the QR code, and then they would say, like, who did this? The black, wasn't up yet, yet. So who did this, and how did your building get selected? And this is so cool. We haven't seen something like this. And people would come off the train. The L runs right by our building and come and say, like, we had to take a picture, of your building because it's so impactful, and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful piece, and the talent that went into it is like incredible. And
tons of activity while it was being created. It has been consistent since with people just coming from all over the city and from other cities to just like get their picture, to see it, and to be a part of it. That's a huge thing. I see people, and of course I have to like engage everyone that I see. It's a part of it. But most importantly, you see every single day. You see somebody stop, observing, reading the plaque, to either taking their photo or scanning. There's a QR code there still to know who, how did this come about?
Right.
Give me the backstory about this piece. I mean, there's so much to it that taps into to everyone.
You see it on social media circulate. Even this summer, the artist will repost somebody like walking in front of it, and it's just like it keeps going, and it's just, I don't know. I feel like Connor said, I think we're just so proud of it, and just lucky to have it on our.
You just have to let people observe instead of like trying to be like, this is the artist. That's right.
I want to tell you everything right now. Right?
Follow him on Instagram.
Yes. It's interesting. And Connor, you said this. Like, in some ways, it's a mural. Like, like it's just a mural. But I do think there's a power that art has.
Oh yeah.
And I think about just as you talked about 2020. I know I felt this. It was hard for me to put into words all the feelings.
Oh yeah.
It's just hard. And I think art has a way of, you look at that picture and it's a picture's worth 1,000 words. There were 1,000 words communicated, and you looked at that image, and it said what you couldn't maybe articulate or what you wanted to articulate.
Right.
What do you think the power of art is in this moment that we're in? How should art, or could art, be a part of the reckoning that we're having, and hopefully the reconciliation of relationships that we're having?
Yeah, I think, so I was an art major, so art history. Okay. So I think that there is like this free expression that anybody can look at it and appreciate and feel something differently, and I think that is the beauty of art in general, that maybe you don't understand it or maybe you don't know what it's about right away, but those people that are expressing their emotions or things that are happening in the world, it's free, right? And it's a way to get a message out or interact with people, or again, just like this mural or the other ones that are going up in different cities, it's now like a series, and now you're learning so much more about the different historic events that have happened, and so I mean, I could sit here and talk to you for hours about how I feel about art, but
I love that she feels that way, because for me, like, I love to see the artwork. I love to see the messaging. I love to see the overabundance of people creating things to deliver the message. But to me, I want, as we touched on earlier, I want that message to cause the action.
Mm-hmm.
The art is great. I love people expressing themselves in their way because of all the emotion that we talked about. But more importantly, I need that to be the thing that inspires the guy who's feeling marginalized on the train, sees it every morning, to be reminded that, of his self-worth.
Yes.
I need it to be, I know that when I round the corner every single day and look at it, it's just a refresher. Like, if you understand, that the problems of 1968 are problems that are still here in 2020 and 2021 and going to be, unless those things cause action. Yeah. And lastly, if it's not just me being reminded, I needed to be reminding people who might have those horse blockers up that you talked about, or are taking a blind eye to some of these, the injustices. Like, they need to understand that this is happening in front of you, and just because you can turn a blind eye to it does not mean that it doesn't exist.
That's right.
So, if anything, I love the artistic portion of it. It is a blown up photograph,
yes,
right, from 1968, and I need it to be, personally, the thing that triggers something in those people to understand or to start taking action against those issues that were there then and that are still here.
Yeah, and I think what you say, I take that personally. Like, I need to be that for me. I need to be acting in these spaces. I need to be a voice. I need to be willing to, take risks. To be a part of movements that are really trying to change the reality of injustice wherever we see it. And I think that I see you guys doing that as well. I know you know a little bit about Living Undivided and the fact that, this is an experience and a movement that's really trying to invite people into that space, to have these conversations, and then to catalyze them to action.
Right.
And so one of the things that I always love to ask people on this conversation is, what does Living Undivided mean to you? So as we wrap up, I'd just love for you both to just share whatever words you want to. What does Living Undivided mean to you?
I think just harmony, I think, and understanding. I think that everybody comes from a different place. We don't understand everybody's story, but I talked a lot about this, in 2020, is like just giving people more grace.
Yeah.
Just to understand that everybody has a different perspective, everybody has a different story, and we don't know all of those things. And so if we can come together as just more of a community and more of a support system, then we are living that undivided self. And so I think it's just, about equal opportunity too, and raising our kids that way.
Yes. Yeah. Leading by example, definitely. Mm-hmm. Whether it's at home or whether it's in your community or everywhere, that's definitely number one. And then going just back to understanding just how much separation there is throughout each of our communities, and doing whatever that we can to be aware, to take action against it, and to fight injustice, because I think we're on one very, very far end of the spectrum, and I think the people that are feeling the effects of this, and the people that that are in your community that are marginalized, that we need to be fighting for those voices, because that's who needs it the most. And I think we need to be the ones in our place as the ones who are taking some action, because supplying a voice for the people that don't have a voice is what's most important.
Yeah.
So I think Living Undivided is setting the example for these guys, and then fighting for the people pulling up the people that might be below you.
Yeah.
Is the hardest thing. And I think that's what I want to teach these guys, and I want them to understand that there's a lot of issues. We laugh about it, but it's like that this whole conversation, the organization, the reason it's on their show is because there's major issues, and it's going to take a long time, as we can see from our mural from 1968, still relevant today. And what we can do is keep just fighting for the people that need to be fought for, and that's what I see as Living Undivided.
Well, Connor, Colleen, I want to tell you thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing your heart, sharing your story, and I want to encourage you both. I want to encourage you as parents, because one of the things that I've seen, even in the time that we've been here with your girls, is how they affectionately refer to Darius.
Yeah.
That relationship, that experience that they had is something that I believe they will never forget. And if we're going to go to a different place in this conversation, if our kids are going to have a different reality, if there's going to be the equity that we desire in greater and richer ways, it's going to be because kids like yours and kids like mine have experiences that set them up to be bridge builders. Absolutely. And you both are doing that as parents, so job well done. Keep going, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
This episode of Living Undivided is brought to you by Courageous Love, a movement on a mission to unite and ignite people toward racial justice. The show is produced in Cincinnati, Ohio. You can learn more about our host, Chuck Mingo, and the movement by visiting www.chuckmingo.com. That's all for this episode. Join us next time for another episode.